I tell you what he's going to take a meeting for. And they're going to say, oh, Bannon says, I'm not saying to surrender, but I'm telling you, give me the Europeans going to back these guys' play right now. The meeting that Putin will take is a surrender meeting. That's the meeting he'll take. I don't know if he's got a lot to talk about. The line of contact, which is the only important line here, give me a name, any name in Europe that's going to back up. The Poles, who are our best and only true ally over there, wouldn't even come over for the meeting. You know why? They're not part of the coalition of the willing because they understand the risk. The German press today said, they interviewed the defense minister. They said, oh, well, we took a battalion, we took a brigade or battalion, and we put them up in Latvia. We're tapped out. Okay, give me a break. Give me a break. This is a sick, demented, perverted joke. And anybody on the TV that just sits there and, oh, the great nations of Europe are coming together. They're broke. They're gutless. They're cowards. They have no money. They have no material. They have no weapons. They have no men, no personnel, nothing. They haven't stepped up for anything. And yet this fiasco goes on, and every day it goes on. I think President Trump said 5,000 Ukrainians died, which I couldn't get my head around that number until I saw 625,000 Ukrainians have either been killed or wounded in 2025, and we ain't to September yet.
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is August 22nd, 2025. It is Friday. And what you see in the beginning is yet another indication that some people in Washington, D.C. do understand the situation. But before I address this never-ending media circus, I have to point out to the fact, which I know, I am aware of that, make no mistake, and many people do write to me and send messages, and saying that, well, if not for your updates, we would probably go complete bananas if we would follow the mainstream media or even alternative media speaking about the special military operation and obviously Russian-American relations. I'm obviously not a psychologist. I do not have background in psychology, let alone psychiatry. But I totally understand that for some people, which is maybe if it works this way, it's wonderful. I am by no means trying to do it on purpose, but there is a therapeutic effect from my updates, and people say, and they thank me for that, and I really appreciate them expressing those feelings. Obviously, as I already stated, I do not have any background in psychology. Well, I have some background in psychology because obviously when you study, for example, in Naval Academy, there is a whole course which you have to take, which is actually military psychology and pedagogics, actually, which is related to the issues of the methodics of the combat training. So that's pretty much it. And of course, experience. But if it provides that kind of the calming effect for people, my gosh, I'm so glad, people, really am. But obviously, my main task not to be not to provide therapeutical effect, but provides information and explanation of what is going on. What you saw in the beginning is Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon actually understands correctly what is going on in terms of what, well, he is former cadre naval officer. He is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis. And so he has a military background which is enough to understand those intricacies of the present geopolitical moment. And he is correct that, many people begin to say now those things in Washington, D.C., and finally it begins to descend on that. And if we go further, so suddenly we have the, kind of type thing from Western media, which even CNN, as you can see yourself, why Putin is not ready to meet with Zelensky and may never be. Okay, sure, yeah, he will not meet Zelensky. Many people do not understand. And I repeat it again, special military operation continues and there will be no meeting. And Mr. Lavrov, he, as you can see yourself, is That's what he's saying. I mean, how can I further, can elaborate on this? As he says, Lavrov outlines terms for Putin-Zelensky meeting. The Ukrainian leader is pushing for talks with the Russian president to remain in the spotlight. That's absolutely correct. Lavrov stated on Thursday that the Russian president repeatedly stated that he is ready to meet, including with Zelensky, if there is understanding that all issues that require consideration of the highest level have been worked out thoroughly. And he correctly states, clearly his activity in relation to staging a summit with the Russian leader also has a goal of displaying his supposedly constructive focus on the settlement process. But in reality, it is simply about replacing the serious, hard, difficult work on agreeing the principles of a sustainable resolution of the crisis with special effects and tricks in the style of KVN and Kvartal 95. He talks about very famous humor shows both in Soviet Union and in Russia and Ukraine. He said, referring to shows in which Zelensky appeared during his time as a comedian. Absolutely, as you can see yourself. So Mr. Lavrov knows this, and what can I say? He also reiterates this fact that, here it is. What can I say? This is verbatim. This is what Mr. Lavrov says. Ukraine is not interested in peace, Lavrov. Kiev is openly demonstrating it has no interest in long-term peace with Moscow, and the White House described the outcome of the talks as progress, noting there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Well, sure. So, and at a press conference on Thursday, Lavrov confirmed that significant progress has been achieved during the Alaska summit. However, he underlined that Ukraine officials continue to comment on a possible resolution in a very specific way that shows they are not interested in sustainable, fair, long-term settlement. There you go. If you think that it's all done by RT for the consumption of the foreign public, here is the Russian media today. So there you go. August 22nd, this is glad. Yeah, Lavrov, a meeting between Putin and Zelensky is not planned. So there you go. And it's not going to be planned because everybody understands, as Mr. Bannon understands, the only meeting between Vladimir Putin and Zelensky, if it ever happens, will be essentially of Zelensky's, signing off or putting his signature under those conditions of surrender for Ukraine and those arrangements. And as the result, what we have? Well, Ukraine today blows again the pipeline, Druzhba, which supplies oil and to Hungary and Slovakia. There you go. They will continue their terrorist activity, and obviously we have the Europeans have been humiliated completely in the White House, and essentially Europe's fate has been sealed during this, so to speak, classroom meeting. The teacher or the master, if you wish, in shape of and form of Mr. Trump, and we'll take it from there. So Europe sealed its fate, and so if that hasn't been enough, so we have now. All kinds of Western media, all kinds of additional explanations. So, yeah, and this is the only option actually the United States has. Trump stems back from Russia and Ukraine peace talks for now, sources say. US President told top advisors the later meeting would take place after leaders of the two countries have met first. And yes, it's a yet again classic Trump's flop. He promised all kinds of things which haven't been there. And in terms of that they are discussing the meeting with between Putin and Zelensky. Vladimir Putin is not subservient to the United States, and Russia is, basically on its own in this particular respect. And in this case, Trump, he took the only road Russia offered him, off-ramp. Just get the hell out of the way. And this is what Russians were telling the United States for a long, long time. You are the party to this thing. And again, the meeting in Alaska, which it was very important. And again, as you know, Mr. Trump ordered Tulsi Gabbard, the director of the National Intelligence, to limit any kind of leaks or any kind of the discussions beyond the official framework about Russian-American negotiations. They are still ongoing. What is being said there? What is being arranged there? We don't know. We only can guess things, for example, from such indications that, as I already stated before, and that's the ExxonMobil, which is one of the huge American oil companies, they are being led back into the Sakhalin-1 project. There's a lot of oil there, believe me. And Americans will be in, Europeans will be out. Well, they are out. So, and that tells you something about what is going on between the United States and Russia. And many people correctly begin to define it, which I think that's where it will be going for a while now, is that maybe the Cold War 2.0 will be actually substituted with the Cold Peace. Hey, cold peace is way better than the hot war, let me tell you. And it is even better than the Cold War. So if that happens this way, absolutely. Let them negotiate, let them talk, let them arrange things. And again, because United States is not the country you can just simply kill. You just can't do that. And in this particular case, evidently the understanding that you cannot do the same to Russia is finally begins to, dawn in the United States, including this lovely moment that this creep, John Bolton, is now being searched by FBI and all kinds of people about some national security issue. Well, I know the guy is not just the war hawk, he's a chicken hawk, he's a coward. And so what can I say? We are in this arrangement phase, and whatever will come out in the Russian-American bilateral relations, we will see step by step. Hopefully. But Mr. Trump wouldn't be Mr. Trump if he wouldn't continue to, speak all kinds of nonsense. But the fact that still, people who worried, they were worrying about this his statement, which is usually was done absolutely without even thinking, that that there will be some kind of air support. No, there will be no air support. There is no foreign troops will be on the Ukrainian territory until Russia says so. Well, Russia will not say so. So Pentagon says US will play a minimal role in Ukraine's security guarantee. As Political reports, meetings between NATO and US defense officials left allies concerned that President Donald Trump would leave Europe to ensure a lasting peace in the war-scarred country. Yes, United States has no business. United States is the party to war, and the only thing which United States has now is the last opening, the last off-ramp to get the hell out of this place, leave Europe to face the consequences, which Europeans already facing essentially from the United States and from Russia, which doesn't want to deal with them anymore. And so, what can I say? That's the arrangements, as Kim Carnes sang in her wonderful Warrior album of 1983, I believe. What a wonderful piece of music there. And so what I say, that's just the way it is. Now, if we go and think further about whatever Mr. Trump tries to accomplish here, well, what can I say? It's difficult to say that you can take these guys seriously, but these are the major, war hawks. These are the major, chicken hawks. As you can see yourself, those Baltic states, they are ready to fight Russia. They even are ready to send the whole company into Russia. Oh my gosh, pardon me, into Ukraine. So Russians are just preparing the articles of the unconditional surrender, and they probably will go to sign them in Riga or Vilnius, somewhere there, maybe in Tallinn, so I don't know. And when you look at this overall picture, we have to get to the point which Bannon admits for this year alone, till August, and August is not over yet. We have 625,000 KIAs and wounded on part of Ukraine, which of course Ukraine denies, but yeah, I mean, all indications are there. And so this number have been floated by Douglas McGregor, Daniel Davis, me, by now Steve Bannon, by Larry Johnson, by all kinds of people, so talking about the fact that, that's, I believe Scott Ritter also touched upon this, Ray McGovern, so all those people who work on the alternative media in terms of the military, political, and intelligence analysis, they've been talking about that the losses are catastrophic for Ukraine, and she is not coming back from that. I mean, the regime of Zelensky will be obviously annihilated, but if we go to the only thing which really matters, letters here, the line of the combat contact. We have, let's take a look at the today's tally. Yeah, it's Russian Defense Ministry data. As I already stated, ad nauseam, I will have blister on my tongue, but I will repeat it again and again and again as needed, that we are talking about the situation with the every day they lose KIAs about 13 to 1400 KIAs primarily. So, and many wounded are not evacuated simply. So yeah, if 1.8 million, that's about it, about the KIAs and missing in action. And if you take a look obviously at Ukrainian cemeteries, this is, I mean, absolutely horrifying sight, but they voted for it. I'm sorry guys, I mean, this is how they whatever you say. If you think that it's some kind of Russian rara, guess what? Russians also paid the price in 1990s for stupid decisions, for abandoning their nature and, you know, to abandoning their guiding idea of Russians. And in 1990s, they paid heavily with all kinds of the, well, horrible things happening in Russia, including the, well, by different estimates, between 5 and 8 million people died as a direct result of those sadistic, I mean, inhuman so-called reforms, which turned Russia into nothing more than the playground for the sadists and organized criminals, and essentially what Vladimir Putin later described as this real civil war. Believe me, I know, I've been there. It was horrifying. But so what can I say? If you look attentively at this data in terms of killed, so you also can see yourself that there are a lot of things. For example, this is the death of the one or yet another air defense complex from Germany, IRST. So it's near Odessa, as you can see yourself, an ignominious end for Mr. Kinjal visited it, and yeah, there are all also evidence that, well, even the Ukrainians testify themselves that Russians are using Zircon 3M22s against the targets. Yeah, Russians were launching those Zircon missiles from, you know what, maybe ships of the Black Sea Fleet, and of course Bastion missile complexes from Crimea, or maybe from the other places, but they certainly hit the targets really well. So if we go to our friend Marat Khairulin and Colonel Popov, so we can see ourselves what is happening yesterday. This is Konstantinovka. As you can see yourself, yeah, it's pretty much surrounded now. And if you take a look at the movements, especially towards Konstantinovka itself, it's Alexandra Shultina was liberated. So yeah, it's not good. And probably if you look attentively at the scale left upper corner, that's a 4 kilometer kind of scale, you can apply it. Yeah, pretty much this N20, it's not H, it's N20 so-called highway is under the is going to be, or already is under the fire control of Russian forces, which means it's actually the Konstantinovka now is in operational envelopment, and the scheme of things, you know, the pattern, so to speak, is pretty predictable. Squeeze it, leave a little bit of the escape for rats, and once they try to escape, well, you know what, you know what's gonna happen. Nothing good for them. So, and here we have the issue which I need to address. Before I address it, I have to tell you that you have to deal with media. There's no other way. Actually, if not for the media and whatever is being basically propagated around us in terms of so-called information, information is not knowledge. And sometimes information is nothing more than actually misinformation. So I want to point out to something which is very, very interesting in a sense that which for any person with the half brain and half analytical apparatus immediately testifies to the fact that how butthurt and how inferior and complex of inferiority essentially manifests itself in the Western media. And let me show you something. It's one of those medias which you constantly get into your face whenever you do any kind of search or any research. And here we have this. If you take a look attentively, there is another media which is propagated by MSN. this is MSN site, but they make summaries of all videos ranging from, pardon me, of all information agencies from Bloomberg, which is altogether the Goebbelsonian propaganda, to Fox, to CNN. But here it is. This is morning overview. It was yesterday. I opened this and I look at this and my jaw drops. And they talk about 6 Navy ships with hypersonic missiles. So guess what? The first of those ships with hypersonic missile for some reason is USS Zumwalt, DDG-1000 as they call it. And to my simple astonishment of this is like, oh, okay, so there is this Zumwalt thing, and for some reason it has hypersonic weapons? What is that? So they talk about that USS Zumwalt is a cutting-edge destroyer that has been repurposed to include hypersonic strike capabilities. Known for its stealth design and advanced technology, the Zumwalt class has been a key player in the US Navy's strategy to modernize its fleet. Oh, good lord, what a bad strategy it is. The addition of hypersonic missiles enhances its role as a formidable force at sea. Okay, I was like, okay, so now they have hypersonic weapons, allegedly, right? So obviously the second one has the only ship with the actual real hypersonic weapons, which is 3M22 Zircon. They talk about obviously Admiral Gorshkov class frigate, and we know what it is. We know that these ships and now other ships of Russian Navy are beginning to carry those 3M22 Zircons, a horrifying weapon with a range of 1,500 kilometers and evidently flying all the way at Mach 10, and now probably the latest ones, they say Mach 13 plus or something like that, and we'll talk about it. So I was stunned to learn that, United States has the evidently the hypersonic weapons, right? No, not so fast. And here what it happens. They begin to declare, and by the way, before we go there, this is also one of the USS Zumwalts. As you can see yourself, this is everything you need to know about the stealth of those ships. Yeah, that's what happens when you go to the sea. And as you can see yourself, it's not very stealthy, honestly, with things like with the rust and, those tiles and things, paint peeling off. That's what happens. Ships go to sea, they get dirty, they get, looking like this. But yeah, all this stealth business is so, nauseating, really. And so what we have? We have this. This is explanation of this so-called hypersonic weapons. Well, as you know, there are no hypersonic weapons in American arsenal and not going to be for a long time. And the USS Navy's Zumwalt class destroyer program appeared at one stage to be a technical overreach. While it is technical overreach, leading to an expensive dead end. Exactly what it is. And that's for those 3 basically white elephants, each with almost $8 billion price tag. That's they tried desperately to find some kind of the mission for them. So they are now being repurposed to carry conventional prompt strike, CPS hypersonic missile system. You may ask a question, is it ready? No. Is it a real weapon? No. They did a couple of tests, and some of them, from the launch table at the Cape Canaveral, and it's nothing more that yet another missile system which supposed to hit land targets, and this is all along the same lines as the long-range hypersonic weapon known as the Dark Eagle. It's not weapon. It's not even in the initial operational capability. And they talk about this idiotic idea, you remember, rail guns. Oh yeah, like the drones. It's all the point of masturbation for all kinds of the fanboys. And they were talking about long-range land attack projectile, which turned out to be obviously worth its weight in gold, and it was completely basically abandoned. And come on, range of over 100 kilometers? Yeah, compare this to 1,500 kilometers or even 1,000 kilometers of onyx or zircon. So, but here is the explanation. for what is this conventional prompt strike, this idiotic idea from Bush Jr. administration, which never was technologically feasible for the United States. So they talk about that, oh yeah, that's the whole thing. The CPS, this conventional prompt strike missile, can travel at speeds exceeding Mach 5, striking targets more than 3,000 kilometers away. Yeah, same old, same old. Well, it requires carrying a very substantial missile in size, and they talk about that warhead size is unknown, but estimated to be around 450 to 680 kilogram, slightly larger than that of the Tomahawk, but missiles' kinetic energy make it far more destructive. Well, I can tell you immediately, this is just a regular land attack missile, which they want to accelerate to Mach whatever, and they think that they can attack Russia with this. Of course, they cannot, but yeah, what have you? And so here we have the resolution of this whole issue. Initial plans targeted the first ship-based CPS test firing by late 2025. The United States Navy now says they will conduct the first at-sea launch of the CPS in 2027, with full operation capability anticipated by 2029. Okay, so they don't have the weapon. They don't have missile, so it's not a weapon system. It's just basically in the testing phase, some kind of the prototype, which, by the way, doesn't perform as anticipated, and it's extremely expensive. But yes, they need to save those $8 billion white elephants, and so they want to try to stick this thing, when not understanding that actually this thing is nothing more than yet another iteration of TLAM. And what can I say? But how do they want to fight the surface warfare? How do they want to do all of this, to deploy? And here's the explanation. Especially when we have a lot of fanboys now coming out and, saying that, oh yeah, that Admiral Nahimov nuclear cruiser is also white elephant. For some reason they say that it's $2.5 billion basically modernization. It was expensive, make no mistake, but I don't think it was $2.5 billion. It's there's always those numbers primarily are pulled out of the asses, and a real number actually will never be known because it's classified. But what I can tell you, I want to remind you, and this is what happens when you people do not understand what is this all about. For starters, we'll start with yesterday. This is Angara 1.2 launching a number of the Russian, yesterday, launching a number of the yet another Russian military satellites. It wasn't one satellite, it was how many nobody says, there are few. And this is continuing completion of the Russian recon and ISR, essentially constellation there. And I want to point out why it is important, why I constantly stress things about those military satellites. They are basically part of the recon system, such as Liana, which allow Russians to have almost real-time targeting on anything which moves on the surface of the Earth, at least in the northern, pretty much globally, but primarily on the northern hemisphere, which only really matters for Russians. But they obviously have targeting over the Indian Ocean and all that. So it's fully operational. How many satellites? Yeah, don't go to all those websites which tell you, oh yeah, this is satellite of this and that nature. Not necessarily true. But what I'm saying, Russians can have this targeting, and they're already having it, or constantly, almost in the real time, non-interrupted. And there is another thing. Russians can shoot down any satellite at the elevation or altitude of 650 kilometers. That's what Russian A-235, which is now S-550 also, being a mobile, can do. United States cannot do that. The only thing they can shoot down is primarily at around 250 to very low Earth orbit satellites. They did it before, to just a demonstration. But the point of this all is that Russian satellites are flying at 500 kilometers. And so what happens? Well, if I already showed you to you before, when single Yasin class submarine or Gorshkov class frigate, let alone this monster such as Admiral Nahimov, which carries 80 missiles just for the strike functions, which are all kinds of anti-shipping things, which outrange anything the United States has. Well, look at this. I will remind you again these graphics. If we go back, but here I was talking about Yasin, but they carry especially new generation of the new generation of zircon. There you go. This is a single either submarine or Admiral Nakhimov going out to sea. This is the area it can sink anything. And I mean, with a single salvo, it can essentially sink, well, pretty much all the navies of the European navies, or NATO European navies. So that's what it is. This is how it looks like. And as you can see yourself, the original 616 miles, it was for Onyx. Then you have the 1500 kilometers is for the first iteration of Zircon, which already pretty much covers most of Atlantic. And the latest iteration of Zircon, which is about 2,500 kilometer range, and with, as people say, rumor has it, Mach 13 plus, yeah, you cannot defend against it. And that tells you everything you need to know, especially when you have the constant developing, reliable, high probability targeting. So there you go. This is how it looks like, and that's a single ship of the Admiral, well, Kirov class they called Project 1144. One of my classmates, he was the executive officer of the Peter the Great. Actually, I have some unique things from Peter the Great, and yeah, later he became the commanding officer of the Admiral Kuznetsov, and then became admiral and became the full commander of the full division, which means Admiral Kuznetsov in its carrier battle group. So this is exactly what happens in the real war and when you have the real revolution in military affairs. And that is why Russians look at this world, well, with, how to say it, yeah, nice try it. But as we know, as what happened with the long-range hypersonic weapon, remember, you can go back to my blog. That's why I love internet. It kind of keeps everything, you know, preserves everything in the memory. I was talking about this already by 2020 or 21, that, yeah, though that thing is not becoming weapon for many years. Well, guess what? Today is 2025. They still do not have operational long-range hypersonic weapon. And if they will get it anytime soon, I doubt it. But the same goes for this conventional prom strike, which doesn't even have anti-shipping capability. This is what everything you need to know about it. And this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, before I go to my weekend, and you go into a weekend, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And so this is what everything I needed to tell you today, guys. And have a nice weekend. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.